Right, and like we told you before, Amir Khan is speaking at the Motilal Oswal conference. Let's cut into that quickly.
No, so a lot of time is spent making the movie, but a lot of time is also spent doing other things. For the last 5 years, Satya, who's sitting here, and I have been working on Satyameva Jayate, so that's taken a lot of my time. And then we started working on the water issue in Maharashtra. So there's a lot of stuff that I'm doing which takes my time other than films. I love reading, so I read a lot. I love traveling, meeting people. So I feel as a creative person, it's very important for me to have inputs, which may or may not come of direct use to me in my work, but it helps me grow, it helps me learn, it helps me, understand the world better. For example, in Satyameva Jayate, the experience I had of those 5 years during the research, and it just blew my mind. I would have never had that opportunity if I had not done that.
Amir, in your next film, Dangal, you play real-life wrestler Mahavir Phogat, who trained his daughters to become international-level champions. It's a great, inspiring story, but I have a different question, Amir. At the recent Rio Olympics, we came back with 1 bronze and 1 silver medal, and while those are achievements that must be applauded and have been applauded, it does raise the question, whether us as a 1.3 billion country with that kind of population, a sports-loving nation, why we don't bring more medals? Who love sports and who's watched the Olympics closely, I'm assuming. Where is the lapse, you imagine?
I'll tell you what I feel. I don't blame the athletes. I don't blame the athletes at all. I think that they're doing their very best and they are really giving it all. I think if we want to see Olympic medals, and if we want world-class athletes as a society, then we have to change the way each one of us thinks towards sports. I'll give you an example. When I'm in school, any school you go to, math, history, geography, sciences are all part of the curriculum. Sports is not a compulsory part of the curriculum. It is, ठीक है, sports भी चल रहा है. PT का हम लोग exercise करते थे. My parents never asked me, how did you do in PT? They always asked me, how did you do in my subjects? As a child, you're telling me that this is not important. This is important. Number one. Number two, all that I learned in school, whether it was geography, history, biology, algebra, geometry, very little of that has actually come in use to me in my life. But what has come in use to me in my life is what I got from sports. Sports teaches you hard work, it builds your concentration, it builds team spirit. You learn how to take a defeat, you learn how to be graceful in victory. So many things that sports teaches you is actually what builds you as a human being. So whatever I am today, there's a huge contribution because I was heavily into sports. I was not so much into academics. A lot of what I am is because of that. My focus, the way I apply myself to something is the passion I bring to my work. All of that has come from sports. So I feel that as a nation, we have to think differently about sports. And we have to start it from KG. Sport is a subject. You have to treat it like a subject which is as important as a math. When that happens, you will find that the bottom of the pyramid will become huge. And that will slowly start throwing up more and more talented kids. And then the top 3% of those kids will be world-class athletes. So I think the change has to come from within each one of us. That's what I feel. So, I ask a lot of parents and they say, we want to send our child to this school and this is what we are spending on the child in school. But they never once mention the sports aspect of it. We don't give it importance. So if we don't give it importance, it's not going to happen.
Was that one of the reasons you were drawn to Dangal?
No. I was drawn to Dangal because I just love the script. When Nitesh, the director, came to me and narrated it, I just loved the script. It made me laugh, it made me cry, and I just loved it. So that's the only reason I do films. I don't do films because I want to promote a particular social issue or want to help sports. No, because I have a responsibility to my audience. And that responsibility comes first for me. I have a responsibility to the market, right from my producer to the distributor to the sub-distributor to the theatre owner. So I only go with one thing. Do I love what I'm hearing? If there is a social message attached to it, great. I love that as well. But that's not why I'm doing a film. Like Tare Zameen Par. I did it because I love the story. The story just swept me away. So none of us knew at that time it was going to become a huge hit.
Has that reason for why you do a film changed over the years? I mean, it's now what, almost 30 years since you've been acting. I remember meeting you about 20 years ago at a set in Film City and asking you what was it that got you to make those choices? What prompted those choices? Because even at that time, I think it's fair to say that your choices were unusual. They were thought-provoking, and I remember you saying that it was purely on instinct.
Yes, I do. I've always gone purely on instinct. I go with what I feel. But because of my experiences and what I've learned over the years, my instinct, what you call my instinct, has actually become sharper.
Right.
If you know what I mean, because of what I've learned and, imbibed. So I'll give an example. There was a very important turning point in my life. This was soon after QSQT released. So QSQT released, became a big hit. I was suddenly this overnight star and did not hit me. And then I got a lot of offers. So all the offers that came to me, at that time actors were doing like 30, 40 films at one time, if you remember. Yeah. I'm talking of 88. So I said, yaar, 30-40 to nahi kar paunga. I should be okay with 10. So I signed about 9 or 10 films. And I was so wrong in that decision. Because the work culture or the kind of person I am, I just can't work like that. Yeah. So I discovered that one, I shouldn't do so many films simultaneously. I can only do one thing at a time. The second thing I learned was that there is a big difference between one person's imagination and the others. And the person whose imagination we all have to be worried about when selecting a script is the director. Because when I'm hearing a script and the script says, hero is standing on the mountains and he's singing a romantic song, I'm imagining Kashmir, Kulu Manali, Ooty. Director is imagining Khandala. The producer is saying that ultimately when shooting arrives, he says कि film city में भी 2 टीले हैं, उस पे कर लो. तो आप जा रहे थे जापान, आप पहुंच गए चीन. So this is just a very crude example to tell you how things can change, in cinema, because it's so I realized all this as I began working in these films, these first 9 or 10 films. And I was so unhappy with the work I was doing. I was really unhappy with the work I was doing. I used to come home and I used to cry. I was frustrated. This is not what I had become an actor for. This is not why I had wanted to be a part of the film world. This is not the kind of creative person I am. And I remember my wife then, Reena, would try and, she used to get zapped because she was not from the films. She didn't know how to handle this. But she was doing her best to, hold me together. And at that time I made myself a promise, I said, no matter what, I am never in my life going to sign a film unless I'm happy with the script, the director and the producer. Because these 3 things are critical. Script you have to love, director you have to trust, and producer also you have to trust, because he has to be someone who gives us the resources to make the film well and who releases it well. He gives it a proper release. So these 3 things are not in place, you're going to have an unhappy experience. And for me, the journey is as important as the destination. So I swore to myself that I'm not going to do that ever again. And then these 9 films started to release. The first one released, it tanked, second one tanked, third one flopped. And I was being called the one film wonder by the media. And rightly so, because that's all I had done. And I felt at that time that I'm in quicksand, I'm sinking. These 3-4 films have flopped and I know the remaining 6, how bad they are. Nobody else knows that. So I'm like, I'm finished here. This is the end for me. And I felt I'm in quicksand and I'm sinking, and I've come up till here and there's nothing I can do. No matter how much I try, I'm not able to come out of it. At that time, I got a phone call from Mr. Mahesh Bhatt. And he offered me a film. I was most excited. I was like, wow. Remember that Bhatt Sahab at that time was at the peak of his career. He had made Saransh, he had made Arth, and then he had made Naam. And all 3 very successful. very good films, and I was so thrilled that Bhatt Saab called me, and I felt, yaar, this is the guy who's going to pull me out from the quicksand. He's put his hand out, I have to grab his hand now. Just an announcement with Bhatt Saab will give me a new lease of life for another 3-4 years. ये 5-6 फिल्में फ्लॉप आएंगी, लेकिन people will say, हाँ, भट्ट साहब की फिल्म का वेट करते हैं. I went to meet him. He narrated the script to me, and I didn't like the script. I heard the script and I was like, I'm so shattered that I have not liked the script. I told him, I said, sir, can I think for one day? I went home. I asked Reena, what do you think I should do? She said, I don't know, you should do what you feel like. I said, see, though I don't like the script, if I just say yes, just that as a tactical move will help me. So I was confused, and the next day I went to meet him, and I had no idea what I was going to tell him. But when I was in front of him, I said, Bhatt Saab, I'm really sorry, but I can't do your film because I don't like the script. And who am I to say no to you? You're such a big director. I'm just a newcomer, and plus I'm a flop actor. So who am I to tell you what is right and what is wrong? But it's very important for me to love what I'm doing. And if I don't, then I can't do it. He was very sweet to me. He was very sweet. He was like, koi baat nahi, don't worry, you should do what you feel like. And that film did not happen. I feel today that at that time, if I had compromised with my beliefs, with my emotions, with what I really wanted to do, then my entire life would have been a series of compromises. When I was at my worst, the chips were down, my back against the wall. At that time, if I could still hold on to what I believed in, that gave me so much strength and courage to do the kind of work that you see, that I was able to do after that, you know. It gave me the strength to follow what I believe in. And so, you know, whenever I sign a film, almost everyone around me says, no, don't do this film. I did Lagan. All my friends, everyone said, I'm talking of the film world, Adi, Karan, they were all like, you know, this is going to tank. I don't know what you're doing. Film on cricket, 1893, dhoti mein ghum rahe hain, abdi mein baat kar rahe hain. It's going to tank. Then I did Dil Chahta Hai, then I did Rang De Basanti. Rang De Basanti, almost everybody I knew said don't do it because the story of Bhagat Singh and Chandrasekhar Azad had been made 4 times in that 1 year. And when Mehra narrated the script to me, it was just 2 months back, the last of the 4 had released. So we were setting out to make the 5th version of Bhagat Singh and Azad. And it didn't make any practical sense, but I loved the script. So, starting from my chartered accountant, Mr. Bimal Parekh, who's a financial person, he always tells me, don't do this film, what is this, da 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 da. So, it gave me the strength to follow my heart. I could do what I wanted, no matter what everyone was telling me. I wanted to do what I believed in. And I think that has been, you know, my biggest learning in life. That has been my biggest learning in life.
Amir, you know, the box office benchmark, that's one that changes every couple of years, doesn't it? Until a few years ago, it was the 100 crore film. And then every other film started making 100 crores. It's, of course, with your own film then, PK went on to do the 300 crore record it broke, and that will change as well. Of course, it's very good for the industry that films make a lot of money, that you know that business is good. But it's also true, isn't it, Amir, that it seems like pursuit of box office has become the sole agenda for some. Do you find that disturbing, especially in a creative field, in the storytelling medium, that the only yardstick for success is money?
Well, you know, I don't know whether that's true only for the film world. I think it's unfortunately true almost everywhere. Money is the yardstick for success in almost any field that you pick. Are you a good doctor? How much do you earn in a year? What do you charge for an operation is the benchmark. So I'm saying, and I'm not trying to criticize anybody. All I'm saying is that no matter what walk of life you pick, money has become the yardstick. The reason I'm saying is unfortunate is because almost in every field, actually there are other things that are more important or equally important. Of course, money is important, and of course we shouldn't lose money. I'll give you my own example. When I do a film, I do it with my own heart, and I choose any script that I want. It may not make sense to anyone. But what I do after that is I make sure that the film is made within a certain budget. So that we know that with this kind of a setup, itna to hum kar hi lenge. So nobody is going to lose money. So that is where I'm trying to balance the economic aspect of it. I personally feel, Rajiv, that I should be responsible for my creative freedom. If I have creative freedom, with that comes responsibility. I don't want anyone in the chain, in the market, to lose money on me. So that responsibility I'm taking, you know. So over the last few years, for example, what have I done? I have moved away from money. What I've done is, not few years, it's been now 15 years, I think. What I do is, I don't charge money for a film. So there is no loading of my price on a film.
It doesn't have that burden.
It doesn't have that burden. I tell the producer, आप film बनाओ, film जब कमाना शुरू करेगी, आप पहले film का cost cover कर लो, जो उस पे interest है वो cover कर लो, and then I'll be a part of it in sharing in the profits. It's the oldest way for an entertainer to earn money. You perform live, take out your hat, and you go around to people. अच्छा लगा पैसे डालेंगे, अच्छा लगा नहीं लगा पैसे नहीं डालेंगे. I go on that basis. If people like my films, they will do well, they will be successful, and I'll earn. But that is not my primary thrust. My primary thrust is this film I want to do. And my responsibility is I don't want anyone to lose on it. How much I gain, how much we earn will depend on how well we make the film. And I should be responsible for that. And I should be willing to, you know, place my money where my mouth is.
You know, Amir, I've been in the room when I've heard younger actors talk about, and they're quite perplexed, I have to say. They wonder aloud, when are the three Khans going to move on and make some room for the younger generation on the top? You know, Shah Rukh, Salman, and you are all 51 this year. Everyone in this room, I would imagine, knows when they're going to retire. They plan for it. Some of us want to retire early. Are these thoughts that cross your mind?
No, I think in India we don't have a culture of retiring here. All of us like to die with our boots on. Doesn't matter which field you're in.
Right.
So no, I don't think of retiring. Actually, I never think of the future. I may think of the immediate future, but I don't in general think about the future. I like to be in the moment. I like to be where I am, and I'd like to be thinking about what I'm doing now and enjoying what I'm doing now and, you know, fully living it. So I don't think about the future.
You know, Amir, the film industry has changed so much since you became an actor in the late 80s. It's now almost 30 years that you've been working. So many things have changed for the better, whether it's the amount of money our movies make, the number of screens have increased across the country, the corporatization. Now films are funded by corporates. Is there something you miss about the good old days, about the ways that movies used to be made?
Well, I have been privy to filmmaking not just from the time that I became an actor, because my father was a producer, my uncle was a director-producer. So I actually grew up with films being made around me. So I was privy to that, you know. And perhaps the only thing I miss is, because I think it's great that corporatization has come in. I think it's great that structure has come in. It's great that you're shooting one film at a time in one go. Sync sound, all this is great. The only thing I miss sometimes is that earlier a larger number of people would think from their heart. A larger number of people. Even then there were people who didn't think from their heart but were just, you know. And films can't be made with money. You cannot make a film with money. You have to make a film with your heart. That's the bottom line. You cannot enter it like a business, you know. There is Lakshmi and there is Saraswati. If you are a follower of Lakshmi, then you should not enter the film line. You have to be a follower of Saraswati. Then you enter the film line. Lakshmi will come also. There's no problem. But first you have to be very clear who are you following, you know. And that is something I feel I miss, that because at that time I used to see my uncle talk, my father, and other people in the film industry also who would come to meet them. There was a certain passion and they didn't care much about many things, you know. They would do what they felt like doing. I feel that has become a little less. It's not gone. There are a lot of people even today who really care about what they do. But I feel the number has gone down a little. Yeah.
In the West, Amir, the pay disparity, the pay inequality between men and women, male actors and female actors, that's become a major hot button issue. In India as well, actresses have spoken about the inequality, the big gap between wages for an actor and for an actress. You've been an actor, Amir, for so long. Do you feel like that gap will be bridged? Because, that old traditional way of thinking that actresses are not as valuable to a film as actors are, that now seems a bit sexist and myopic. Also, the success of so many actress-driven films has kind of made that kind of question redundant. Do you feel like that gap will be bridged?
Well, I hope it is. I hope it is bridged. I feel that your pay scale should not be determined by your sex or should not depend on your sex at all. That's absurd. And actually, I have to say that in the film world, most producers would end up paying a person who they think will fill the seats for them. It just makes business sense for them to hire someone who they feel will fill seats. Friday mein log aayenge dekhne. And for that, they're happy to pay anyone. It could be a monkey also. Let me assure you that. It can be any person who fills the seats. So, from a very, very harshly marketing point of view or from an economic point of view, in the film industry, actually it becomes leveled just based on, for example, at one time, Salim Javed, who are writers, were the highest paid. They were paid more than stars. Why were they paid more than stars? They are writers. Today we don't pay the writers even half of what we pay the stars. It's because they pulled people in. They actually got people on the seats.
On their name.
A lot of music directors did that. They were not stars. So I think that I would really like to see men and women getting paid equally, and I would also like to see women stars, whether they are actors, actresses, or technicians, or other creative people, getting paid as much as men. And that will happen. I think that will happen more when we have our own mindset changed. We are such a patriarchal society that our heroes are invariably men. जो हमारे heroes हैं वो मर्द होते हैं. तो हमारे जो पॉपुलर स्टार्स हैं वो मतलब एज इट टर्न्स आउट वो मर्द होते हैं. हमारे पास छोटा भीम है टीवी पे. कोई छोटी लड़की नहीं है जो हमारी हीरो बन जाती है. सो राइट फ्रॉम चाइल्डहुड आई एम ट्रेन्ड, इवन एज अ गर्ल आई एम ट्रेन्ड टू बी अप्रिशिएटिव ऑफ अ मैन. It's very deep set. So if this has to change, it's not going to change by some law. It's not going to change because a bunch of people decide that it's not fair. It's going to change when India as a country changes and we stop being so patriarchal. And that's going to be a gradual change, because then my hero will be a woman. My hero can be a gay person, can be anyone. That does not matter to me. And then when that person becomes extremely popular, extremely loved, that person will get paid for it. There's no question about it.
Why do you think that Indian cinema hasn't broken out or crossed over internationally in the way that, say, French cinema has, or Chinese cinema has, or even Iranian cinema has? I mean, traditionally, of course, Indian cinema did well outside of India in the diaspora markets where Indians were largely populated. I know that that's changing. I know that Three Idiots and PK, they've broken records in China. I know that PK opens in China in October. In Japan. Do you feel like... But it's true, isn't it, that we're not just there yet?
The thing is that the reason why we haven't gone completely international is because we've never tried to. All our filmmakers and all of us creative people in this industry we have an audience of 1.3 billion. And it's an audience which loves movies. It's a very healthy and strong audience which loves movies. So our whole bandwidth is taken by these 1.3 million people. Now, if I have to make a film for India and the world, then the sensibility of each film will change. In a Hollywood film, a guy who's going through a divorce, who's about to lose his son, and he loves his son madly, gets a phone call from the lawyer saying that I've lost this particular one battle in court, and you'll have to give up the child to the mother. He's upset. He's in the kitchen. He starts eating popcorn. Now, as an Indian audience, I would feel that he's not so upset. He's eating popcorn. But वहाँ के लिए वो ठीक है. वो popcorn खाता है. American audience को लगता है हाँ upset है. हमको लगता है यार popcorn खा रहा है. तो if you have to make a film for the world audience, then that balance you'll have to keep.
But Amir, it's interesting you say that because...
But I'm saying in terms of talent, our filmmakers are as good as any other filmmaker in the world. Our actors, our technicians are on par with talent across the world. We don't have the bandwidth to think of a French audience. We don't have the bandwidth to think of an American audience. The day we do, we'll have a film for a world audience. So for example, one of the dreams that I have, which I think will become a film that all over the world will be looked at with wonder, is the Mahabharata. Now that is material which will resonate across the world, I feel, because it's a philosophy. And it's got the most amazing characters. So if we decide to go, if any filmmaker in India really finally decides that, listen, I'm not making a film for India, I'm making a film for the world, then there will be some transition period he will have to go through. He will have to understand a world audience. I understand an Indian audience. I don't understand an American audience.
But Amir, isn't it true that inherently if a film is true to its own culture, it will resonate? I mean, Lagan did.
Sure.
You took it to America, you worked the Oscar campaign, it reached that Oscar shortlist, and you couldn't have a more intrinsically Indian film than Lagan.
No, I completely agree with you. But you have to remember that will never go mainstream. Now, all the films that have traveled across and have actually made some kind of impact are films like Three Idiots, which are very universal. And they're very modern in the way they're presented as well. The way the characters are behaving is very modern. So Three Idiots, PK, these are the big international successes that we have seen. Lagan, and a number of others. But these are one-offs. And when we were making Lagan, we had never thought of an international audience. वो तो अपने आप लोगों को पसंद आने लगी. We were making it for an Indian audience. Similarly, Three Idiots was not made for a Chinese audience, but the Chinese loved it. Not only the Chinese, the Americans, most of Southeast Asia, Japan, Korea. The film was a big hit all over the place. And it was seen largely on pirated sites, even over there, because it was not released over there. It became a hit across without being released over there. So that happened. See, some things happen on their own. It was not designed. And there will be some films which will travel. But if you're saying there should be a concentrated effort on it, then that decision has to be taken by a filmmaker. Okay, I'm making a film for a world audience.
And I need to write it like that.
I need to keep that audience in mind. I need to understand that audience also.
Amir, Irfan, Priyanka Chopra, Deepika Padukone, they're on the cusp. They appear to be on the cusp of global stardom. They've been picked up to star in major American TV series and Hollywood films. I'm sure there's been no shortage of offers as far as you're concerned. Does that interest you, working in the West?
No, it doesn't interest me particularly. What interests me is a good film. That good film can be in the West or in the East, or North or South. I want a good film. A film which touches my heart. And a film that I feel I can perform in. So where the film is being made is irrelevant to me. There have been a number of offers to me from Hollywood, but I have not liked any of the scripts. So far I've said no to everything. My criteria for doing a film remains the same. Why I don't feel like doing that, I'll tell you, is because I feel that I have an emotional connect with my audience, with the people of this country. It's a relationship that I have built over 27 years. It's a relationship that not I have built, a relationship that we have built over 27 years. It's something that I value a lot. And if I start working in the West, then I don't want to leave my audience behind. Yeah, it will not be. I will not be happy doing that. When I'm sitting in the theater and watching my film. By the way, I watch all my films in the theater. I hide in the aisles or at the back, and I watch the film. So when an Indian audience reacts to it, and these are my people here. We belong to each other. So there's a certain emotional connect that I have with them. If I go to some other place and some strange people are watching my film who don't know who I am and they're liking it, I may not feel the same. I don't know how to explain it.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? So emotionally, I'd rather work here. If there is ever an offer from America, or for that matter China or Japan or any place which I feel is exciting, I'll do it. But I don't want to shift base.
Right. You've said that traveling across the country
Right, so there you have it, Amir Khan sharing his experiences and his outlook for the future as far as movie making is concerned, saying that he makes movies with his heart and that is all that he uses as a criteria before he selects a movie. On that note, that's all we have on this edition of Reporter's Diary, but don't go anywhere, plenty of news and updates up ahead.